Now we're going to move to the front of the ship and do the 10 forward square frames. It's going to follow very much the same sequence as the aft ones that we just put in. Although having said that, I'm sure there'll be some interesting challenges along the way. Whereas in the back of the boat, the aft of the boat, the aft frame had a floor and the foreframe had a cross chock. It's the reverse when we go to the forward square frames, as the aft frame has the cross chock and the foreframe has the floor. I found it absolutely necessary to keep track of where I am, so I produced this little color chart, which helps me keep control of the frames, and it's really proven to be invaluable. The other form that I made up is all the various dimensions at different inches, and I'm constantly referring to this to help me when I'm cutting out various things. It's certainly worth its weight in gold. In the process of making this film, I came across this wonderful feature called time-elapse, which allows me to put what is probably easily half an hour to an hour of work into a few seconds. In fact, I think this whole clip is probably about a minute, and it really is a great feature that will allow me to take you through some of the boring parts that you've seen before in other videos and just quickly get to what a new crisis is that has been fostered on me during the build of this wonderful ship, the HMS Thorn. And just a reminder, I've been getting some interesting emails that seem to refer to me as some sort of expert builder. And I just want to reassure you, if you haven't seen from the many mistakes that I've made, that I'm the furthest thing from an expert builder. And I'm keeping my promise to you to show you all the gory details of the mistakes that I've made during this build, as you're about to find out in the next few frames. We always need to put on the vertical lines so that we can check the alignment of the frame. As happened before, we have to re-establish the lines. So the first thing we're going to do is just draw out the individual lines on the plan, and then we're going to transfer them to the building board. We've only put the forward lines so that we can line up the alignment board with the frame. Whereas in the first time I actually established stations, I realized that was not necessary. All we need is the alignment line. When we tried to line up the first square frame on the bow, we found that it was way inside. So, one step forward, 3 steps back. We need to correct this problem, and it goes back 3 frames. They were too far out, so we need to take them. Maybe we can save the frames, maybe we'll have to rebuild them. So the old rubbing alcohol is out. If 3 frames are off, we'll clean them up and decide where we go from here. We have restuck the 3 frames on the starboard side, and as you can see from this, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the frame. I've actually lined up quite a few of them on a sheet of paper. So clearly the problem was not balancing it properly, and lining up on the three planes, on the front, on the side, and on top. Well, it didn't turn out to be that bad, so we have recovered. I was able to reuse all of the frames. I may still have to do a slight adjustment, but I won't have to remake any frames. So that's L forward in place and lining up with the plan on the floor. We've cut it down and installed the window spacer, which is 28.5 inches and ensures that the gun port is exactly the right size opening. And now we'll install L aft, and that will have a slight dogleg in it. To make up the shifted timber, we're including this square, which is just a little over 1.5 inches. This is 10 inches, this is 9.5, so we have a 1/2 inch difference. And we fitted this over the cross chalk. We're going to stick it and clamp it in place. This is simply a weight to make sure that it's down hard. And we've clipped it off. It's always a challenge to line up these square frames. So it just turns out that using this method of verifying that we're square to the building board also serves as a clamp to keep the frame, which is L aft, tight against the model. I had a lot of trouble with the rising floor. It broke on me twice. Eventually I had to use some West epoxy to get it to hold together. So I wrote Greg, see if there was a solution to the problem, and he came up with this, which I'll detail, a different way of making it as one solid piece. The only thing we need to be careful of is that the grain of the wood runs horizontal. So that's what I'm going to do with K going forward. It's just simply too difficult. He had suggested we could put a biscuit in it, and I had actually thought of that, but I'm not sure that's how the ship would have been built, although this isn't probably how the ship was going to be built anyway. The construction of the cross chalk remains the same as outlined in the book. So this part of the video takes us through the making of those bigger pieces, and I thought I would take the opportunity to show off my improved skills in using the scroll saw. And I have to say I'm wasting a lot less wood than I did in the past. And then for all the straight surfaces, I come back to the Proxon bandsaw, which I'm getting better and better at. And it really helps when you're putting the frames together to really start with the flat pieces or the joint pieces that are very close to the lines that you had on the original plan. And then of course back to the spiral sander to really do the bulk of the cleanup, which helps when we're shaping the pieces. This is the new floor cut out, much stronger than the old one. And this would be the cross chalk, which is always a pretty strong connection. And now we're going to do the balance of the frames. They have all been cleaned up, and we have did the rough assembly. And we just thought we'd show you the difference. This is the cross chalk. And this is the floor, the new floor. And that gives you an idea of how they fit in together. We're now going to cut the recesses for the sweep ports on J aft. And to do this, we've fitted it, we've marked it out, cut some 4-inch stock. The recess for the stills are 2 inches deep. So I've set it on a caliper and use the caliper to scribe the 2-inch line, and then I highlight it on pencil. Here is the frame all made up and ready to go. And you can see, hopefully all of my cuts will line up perfectly. I'm so relieved to finally come to an end. It's been quite stressing and lots of challenges, but that's the nature of this build. Still making mistakes, believe it or not. I put in J forward and aft and mix them up, so I'm going to have to take them out and just switch them around. It's not a big thing. just a pain. So that brings us to the end of this very interesting part of the build.